guys doing today? I'm Nicholas Reno. I've noticed a lot walking around, and especially having nieces and nephews and little kids around, and seeing a lot of parenting growing up as a child, seeing in stores and different things how parents are punishing their child for things that they do wrong. You see parents in stores grab up their children, spank them, do things to make the child cry, and not really learn their lesson. I've just been honestly thinking that it's not okay to spank your child, and that's what I'm here to talk about and persuade people that it's not alright to just spank your child and think that that's gonna get them on the right path to what they need to do. Now, there are plenty of other examples out there, especially in the media, if nobody's ever seen it, that the whole Adrian Peterson case. Now, Adrian Peterson is a professional football player, plays for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he beat his son with a switch. His son is 4 years old. Beat his son with a switch and got child abuse charges towards him, and like child not neglect, but charges against him for hitting his child. And his excuse was that he grew up that way, that it's okay because if he grew up that way, anybody is fine after that. But it's not okay to hit your child. There are plenty of other things. And child discipline uh, really needs to be like timeouts, encouraging them to do the right thing, like sitting them down and talking to them and showing them what to do. For example, if a child, keeps going at something, you keep telling them, no, you can't have that, no, you can't do that. Instead of smacking their hand or doing something like that, you simply tell them and explain to them why they can't have that object, especially if it's something that can endanger them or something that is too small for them to have or too heavy or just not good for them in general. So you just need to sit them down and tell them why they can't have it, or simply put them in a timeout, or take take something away that they like playing with, like a toy, or so then they get through that. Okay, so this is wrong. I can't do it, so I'm not going to do it again. But like I said, like Adrian Peterson said, he grew up that way and was hit, so he thinks it's okay. And that's the other thing that parents think. It's not okay to hit your child just because you grew up and you were hit that way. Just because you're grown up and you were abused, not abused, but spanked and like kind of a corporal punishment, physical punishment, and when you were a child, does not mean that it is okay for you to hit your child either. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody pretty much gets spanked, but there's a certain point to getting spanked. When they're a young child, you got to sit them down because they're still learning. Everybody's learning. Throughout life, you learn. You need to sit them down and show them the path to go on. Now, as they get old, if they're like 8, 9 years old, it's all right to spank them, but to a certain point. Don't leave physical marks on them. So, and what they don't understand is that when you hit a young child, children, think about that and they think, it's okay. So as they get older, when they get put in a bad situation or someone's doing something they don't like, in school or something, that drives them to think, well, when I do something I don't like, that my parents don't like, I get hit. So if someone else is going to do something that I don't like, it's okay for me to hit them to punish them for what they're doing. And that just starts fights and all that in school. And it's just not right. And down the road, it can cause physical issues for a child. Now, these issues are very simple down the road. Like I said, they think it's okay so that it keeps going as a process. As parents nowadays think it's okay to spank their child because they were spanked. And that's just an example of showing that down the road, it does get to that point where you think it's okay, but it's really not. So, it can just cause like physical and mental damage down the road of you thinking it's okay. And it's actually a proven fact that children that are abused growing up and beaten like that growing up are going to do the same thing to their families and become a physical and assault and hurt people because they think it's okay to treat people that way and punish that way. Now the other thing here is that parents these days just don't believe in like corporal punishment. They don't think it's that bad, but it really is. You shouldn't. get your child, when you're punishing your child, you shouldn't make them cry. It's one thing if you take something away and they cry, but you shouldn't hit them to the point to where they cry, because it can physically mess the child up. They don't understand that what they did wrong. You need to show them what they did wrong. Now, like I said, a lot of the counter arguments are saying that, they don't think it's wrong because they were spanked growing up and all this stuff, but really physical punishment can do bodily harm and fear the child. So then every time you do go to talk to them, if you're hitting your child and you do go to tell them, hey, you're doing this wrong, you know, if you're hitting them, they're going to think every time they do something wrong, they're going to get hit and they're going to start fearing. And it can cause an outlash as they grow up because then they're just going to rebel against you. Now, this is a big issue going on now, and I've seen it. I've seen, child abuse go on in my own family, and it's not right. I don't believe in hitting children for the simple fact that it seriously can hurt them down the road. You know, Parents don't think about the future when they're doing it, but it can. You shouldn't teach your child that it's okay to spank and do all that down the road. So, uh, it can cause many different things, like I said, as in, fear. They think they're going to get hurt, you know. Uh, they fear you, they think they're going to get hurt of you, and they just don't, it doesn't get them to learn what they did wrong. It just shows them, that, okay, when I mess up, I'm going to get hit, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to do it again. You need to sit them down, and you need to show them what right and wrong is. But like I said, it all depends on the age too. Age is a big factor. If they're a little kid, you should never hit them. Like Adrian Peterson's case, his son was 4 years old. He should have never laid a hand on him. At 8 years old, it's one thing if he's doing something to smack his hand or something. He's 8 years old. He kind of knows, But you should never leave a mark. A little smack is different than a big mark. And it's just like it's clear like that. So the other thing is that parents just need to understand that it's not okay to hit your child. So, in other words, child discipline and child abuse, many parents just need to realize that that they can get child abuse cases against them for even the littlest things nowadays. Just because you didn't back then and your parents didn't, wasn't a big issue back then, it is now. And there are two different things now between. There's a thin line between child abuse and punishing your child. So parents just need to watch that thin line and make sure that they're not using any objects to beat their children. They're not using anything but their words. Your words will travel a long way. Any child nowadays growing up, when their parents say, I'm disappointed in you, or say, hey, we have to sit down and talk, that hits you harder and gets you more thinking in the mind that, oh, what I do wrong? Where did I mess up? And when your parent says, I'm disappointed in you, that hits you a lot harder than if they're going to spank you, smack you, do whatever. So again, this whole thing is on to stay away from child abuse and using physical punishment to punish your child. You should just stay on a clear path of talking and teaching them along the way instead of physically punishing them. So, again, I'm Nicholas Reno, and that's what I honestly think about using physical punishment on children.